Back, everybody, to Vorello Vision. Today's guest, Tiffany Miller. A little bit of a different guest. Usually have founders on here or just even individuals, but we have a practice manager on today. I'm very excited to dive into the raw reality of Tiffany and her journey and what she's doing right now. Thank you for getting on, Tiffany.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jeff. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So, for those who may not know you yet, could you give just a quick background on, who you are and what it is that you do?
Yeah, so I am a healthcare administrator. Three basic functions as an administrator, right? Or at least from my perspective.
Right.
If a patient is unhappy with the care they've received or some aspect of coming to the clinic, I got to go, fist fight my doctors, fist fight my staff, do whatever I got to do to make sure that we're firming those processes up and that everybody is treating, you know, patients and individuals with a very patient-focused lens. On the flip
Right.
side, if I've got a patient that my staff are really unhappy with or my doctor's unhappy with, they're being non-compliant, they're being belligerent, any of that, I gotta go fight the patient now and be like, hey, we're on the same team. We're trying to help you. We're trying to be part of the solution. And for that to work, you also have to be part of that
Yep.
team and that solution and work with us. So, on the flip side, I do that. And the third lane, I sort of run up and down all the time. If you work in health insurance, I'm so sorry. I got to fight you every day about something,
Yeah.
whether it's the pay rate or the pre-authorization. We're always talking, me and the insurance folks. So those are kind of the three basic ideas that everything I do orbits around. I mentioned this briefly before we hopped on. If it's not overtly someone else's job, it becomes the administrator's challenge to pursue, whether it's, internal operations, external operations, vendor agreements, problems with the EMR, problems with IT. I mean, all kinds of stuff that we handle. But
Yeah,
that's
for
my
sure.
role.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I think a lot of people mix up the idea of what a, practice manager or administrator does. Maybe some people might just think you sit at a front desk and answer phone calls or do this and that. But as you said, you and I were talking last week when I first met you, and also just, even just earlier, you were mentioning that, there's things that you do that are maybe sometimes other people's jobs. You got to just do so many different things all the time, which you have very, very, big responsibilities for certain things. You're dealing with, certain headaches here and there, although it's your job and I'm sure you enjoy it. Could you dive into like what you did before this? I know we talked about it personally, but for everybody watching,
Yeah.
have you always done this or what?
No, no, this was definitely a pathway I did not see myself taking, and one of those career developments that you look back on and you're like, I had no idea that this was going to go the way that it did
Yeah.
back then. So, when I got into healthcare, I was 19 and I was working in as an in-home health aide to a client that had cerebral palsy. So a lot of wheelchair ambulations, I'm sorry, wheelchair transfers and ambulations, bathroom breaks, showering, dressing, occasionally feeding, helping with balancing budgets, that sort of thing. All of that for about 5 years. And then I got into my master's program and I started working as a case manager for a workers' compensation pain management clinic in Texas. Won't go into that too much, but it
Yeah.
basically was the idea that you would keep individual patients' recovery journeys on track. So
Yeah.
you're keeping an eye on compliancy, you're making sure forms are getting filled out and sent in to the correct agencies and the insurance and the employer, that they're getting the updates they're supposed to be getting, making sure that the client is staying on track so that
Yeah.
hopefully they can get back to work as soon as possible. And in the meantime, they're not going without pay, they're not going without resources or benefits if you can get them connected to things to help them keep their life outside of this injury also moving forward, that's what we would
Right.
do. Anything, everything. From there, I went further into my master's program and decided to take a step back and do more part-time work. And I think the word I used when we talked about this last week was it's like I couldn't escape from healthcare no matter what. So I got involved in graduate student government at my university and was the primary representative for about 7,000 students.
Mhm.
And even there, we would talk about access to healthcare, access to mental health care, health insurance opportunities for the different types of students, domestic and international, and in-state versus out of state, and what all of that looked like. And I did that for about 2 years until I graduated. Then I got my first, quote unquote, big kid job. and was working as an office manager for a psychiatric clinic
Right.
that primarily served veterans. So it was a community care network clinic that was contracted to see that patient population. And I did that until about 2023. Then worked briefly as a care coordinator, kind of like a case manager for a local business in DFW. It was the brainchild of Texas Health Resources and UT Southwestern Health Resources. Loved working there. Got cut during a job layoff. Moved over into the inpatient sphere briefly. Worked at
Yep.
an eating disorder facility inpatient. Decidedly realized during that stint that I am not meant for inpatient work.
Yeah.
Outpatient is my bread and butter.
Right.
And God love the administrators that do the inpatient work as much flack as I think admin gets in general, and especially those administrators.
Yeah.
A lot of what you're doing, you're the only one that can do it. The
Right.
clinicians need to be able to focus on patient care. That's the
Mhm.
thing that they're there to do at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And, you want to, it feels a lot of times like clinicians and administrators are pitted against each other. And I've heard clinicians say, yeah, administrators are the ones that tell me what I can't do all day long. And that's true to some extent. Like, yeah, we got to stay compliant. We got to make sure we're
Right.
following state regulations,
Yeah.
federal regulations, that things are consistent. But a lot of times, at least me and my colleagues, that connected through my master's program, we were trained that our primary focus was to do what needed to be done to ensure positive, high quality patient care without that being at the expense of employee health and
Right.
care and, joy, that we had to find the ways to marry these two things.
Yeah.
Um, and so a lot of how I think we viewed ourselves and I view myself is I'm not here to tell you what you can't do. I'm here to tell you what needs to be done.
Right.
And that's my role. And so I did that inpatient, learned that I'm better suited to outpatient, and that's how I got into my current position. I've been here since April of 2024, and I'm currently the office manager and practice manager administrator for a neuropsychological assessment clinic in Plano,
That's
Texas.
awesome. That's awesome. Yeah.
So that's the
I like,
journey.
yeah, I like the journey, and I like how detailed you were with it because I think, and obviously there's many different, pieces to the puzzle, obviously than that, but I like how detailed it was in terms of what you said. Now, I would like to dive into how, like, I feel like everybody in healthcare, they have just a journey in terms of going or doing so many different things until they finally get to the spot that they want, like the destination that they want, whether it's what they do for a living or they start their own company. I
Mhm.
want to dive into that in a little bit, but the first thing before I want to ask you is like, what drew you into this type of work? What, like, just healthcare in general? I know you said you were 19, right, when you first got into it.
Yes.
Some could argue that's a very young age to get into healthcare. I mean, because sometimes people get out of high school at 17, 18, or 19. They go to college for many years, whatever, then they finally get into something at like 22, 23.
Mhm.
At 19, what was your thought process like then and also before? Like, was there something that you went through in your life or you seen or that you enjoyed doing that led you to healthcare specifically?
Yeah. So, growing up, um, my family, I realized in my mid 20s that I grew up in poverty. I always thought we were middle class, and I learned very quickly about 24, 25 upon going further out into the world and talking to more people like, oh no, 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 we were in poverty.
Yeah.
Um, and even outside of that, when I was 15, my mother was actually arrested and sentenced to a 10-year minimum mandatory sentence in federal prison on drug
Wow.
charges. And that was the culmination, from my perspective at least. Even back then, this is how I thought of it. And as I've grown older and I've learned more about my family and our background,
Mm.
it solidified this more for me. But looking at my mom's experiences and my family and our lack of access to money and to resources and all of these things together, something that my family consistently lacked was access to health care, in particular, access to mental health care.
Yeah.
And that is the story for so many patients that are currently part of the healthcare system in its current iteration. And it's not going to get better unless we all collectively are willing to put in the work, the time, the effort to make it a better system. And so
Yeah.
I looked at that and was just kind of like, the joke with psychology majors, because that was my bachelor's degree. The joke with psychology majors was that you got into psychology if you were interested in either fixing the people you love or fixing yourself or both. Well, I
Mm.
was very interested in fixing my family. I
Yeah.
wanted to be the change that I felt like the people I loved needed, my
Yeah.
family, my friends, and so on. Which only solidified each year that I went through, and I made more friends and people talk to you about their lives and their stories.
Mm.
It's in every year since that decision becomes more and more solidified. It's like another layer of calcium being added to, a rock. It gets
Yeah.
harder and harder and more. This is the right space for me to be in.
Of
But
course.
I really wanted to be a clinician. I wanted to be a psychiatrist, and I wanted
Mm.
to go into mental health,
Mm.
and I wanted to help stabilize people and get them back on track and help them create the pathway to fix their problems,
Yeah.
right? Um, and so that was what I was going to do. I was pre-med, I was on that track. This is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to do. And then as I got closer to senior year, first my father had an emergency gallbladder surgery, and
Mm.
you get the call at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday night, or
Yep.
whatever day of the week it was, but it was late, and it's your father under anesthesia already telling you, hey, don't worry, I'm going to be fine, but I'm at the hospital. This is what's
Yeah.
happening. And
Right.
that happened. And then not long after that, within that same year, my mom calls me and tells me she's got an aneurysm in her carotid heart valve. And that, for anyone that's in the field, that anyone that is a clinician listening in on this, they will know immediately that's not an operable problem. You
Yeah.
can't go in to do surgery to fix that. That is an
Mhm.
issue that either resolves on its own, which is rare, or it
Yeah.
kills you.
Yeah.
There's no in between. Hers did end up resolving. It was about two
Good.
years, over the course of about 2 years, hers
Good.
did resolve. But at the time, these things happened, and I sat there and I went, I can't emotionally commit to medical school,
Yeah.
because the whole reason I want to do it is for the people I love.
Hmm.
And if the people I love need me and I can't be there because I'm there, because I'm in med school, because I'm committed, because I cannot step away from that. That's not something you go and you're there and then you say, hey, by the way, I need a month or two off to go care for one of my parents. No,
Yeah.
you would just have to miss that, right?
Yeah.
I couldn't do that. And so I pivoted and I said, okay, this is no longer the plan. It can't be the plan. It just
Hmm.
can't.
Hmm.
So what else can I do? And I had found during college, specifically during fencing and my engagement with my fencing club on campus, that I was very good at navigating bureaucratic processes. That where other people would run into a wall or get the answer no, I would be like, thank you so much for your time. Next, who's going to help me see this through? Because
Yep.
if the thing I'm asking for isn't wrong, it's not illegal, it's not breaking any rules. If the answer is no, just because you don't want to have to deal with it, that's fine. You don't
Right.
have to. But
Yeah.
I'm going to keep going until either somebody tells me explicitly in the rules, shows me the I's and the T's for why we can't do this thing, or until we do the thing. And so I found during my work with fencing that I was very good at these processes and navigations. And, a lot of people get discouraged. No, 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 I can't do it. Sorry, don't have time. A lot of people get discouraged by that. And it's not that I don't, it's just that I'm very stubborn. I think I told you, my running thing is that I'm very charismatic and I'm very stubborn. And so if
Right.
one doesn't work for me, then it's the other. Like, all right, we're either going to be friends and we're going to help each other and we're going to get this thing done, or you've just made your first enemy, Tiffany Miller. Nice to meet you. Because if you're going to keep me from doing this thing, we're going to have beef, right?
Yeah. I
Just
have beef.
that's where we're at. We have beef.
Have
And
beef.
so I'm good at this. I'm good at
Yeah.
the navigation. I'm good at keeping going where other people kind of, hit the out button, the ejection button, get me out of here, lifeline. I don't do that. I just keep going.
Yeah.
I have to, because if I don't, go back to my very first statement, if I don't, nothing's ever going to change.
Yeah.
So I have to keep going
Yeah.
because that's where we're at. And so I pivoted and I was like, okay, if I can't be a clinician, then I can support clinicians. I can go into administration. I can go into leadership roles and management, and I
Right.
can be the champion for the clinicians and for the patients and for the staff and for, the group that, whether they realize it or not, are all on the same team trying to do the same thing. We're all
Yeah.
trying to get the patients healthy. We're all trying to help the patients improve the system, improve the outcomes. I can support these people. And
Yeah.
maybe I won't be a doctor helping 20 patients a day, but I'll be an administrator helping 10 doctors help 20 patients a day.
Of course.
And so it's kind of like, okay, I'm actually in an indirect way, I'm supporting way more patients on the back end than I
Mm.
ever would have even been able to as a clinician.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's how I got into it, was that these things happened and I had to make a decision and I made the call. And so I enrolled in this master's program. I was the youngest person in the program. The average age of the other healthcare admin candidates was, I believe it was 43. And I was a little baby 24-year-old in enrollment period, and was 26 when I finished up, 20, going on 27. And to this day, I'm still one of the youngest administrators you're going to run into that has the experience I have and the education. Usually it's
Yeah.
one or the other.
Yeah.
Usually we get into the field, we work for 10 to 15 years, and then we go back and we get the master's. I kind of, you know, cart and horse, I kind of did it the other way. It's like, let me
Yeah.
get the knowledge first and then keep going. And that's what I did.
Right.
But that was the why. I wanted to help the people I loved, and I wanted to
Yeah.
help people that are like the people that I love.
Yeah. No, I love that for sure. And um, I respect again how detailed that was, and I sorry to hear about your dad and your mom going through that. I've had some insane calls or things happen to my family as well, or even friends, or just randomly. A big one being a year ago, I got a call. Weird how you said Tuesday night. I think it was a Monday night at like 9 p.m., not 10 p.m. like you said, but like 8:30 or 9 p.m. I was watching an NBA game with a couple of my buddies, at their house, and I got a call from my stepdad's sister. So like my aunt, right? Whatever. And I'm like, this is weird. She never really calls me. Something's up, probably. Um, Not that we don't talk often, we do, but it's not like, I just she calls me every once,
But it's a Monday at 9 p.m. and that
yeah,
this
it's like I
kind of
was
talk
like,
is usually not now.
yeah, it's like, okay, what's going on? And my mom for the last 10 years has had these weird episodes to where she would have stroke-like symptoms, and she would have just migraines, like really bad migraines. Her vision would go out, her speech would be slurred, she would sometimes curl up in a ball and wouldn't be able to move too much. And I don't care. I don't think my mom cares if I share this information. I tell her all the time she needs to get on social media and talk about her story, because who knows, other people might be going through the same thing. And it ended up being she had a heart attack.
Mm.
She ended up having a heart attack that night because my aunt, my stepdad's sister said that, your mom's having another episode, but this time, she's saying she can't breathe, her chest hurts and stuff. It seems a little bit different, so we'll keep you updated. And I'm like, she goes, you just need to get here to your mom's house and stay with your sisters while, we go be with her and figure out whatever. Keep in mind, my stepdad, my mom's husband, is in a whole other state. We're in Illinois, and he's in Nebraska at the time because he's on pipeline, just working, right? So he knows he's freaking the heck out. He's like, "What's going on?" Or I think at first he wasn't really freaking out. He's like, "Oh, she's just having another episode. Tell her to take her medicine. Tell her to drink some water." But his sister was like, no, this is a little bit different. And I was like, okay, this don't seem right. And I just had some weird energy in the air. I was driving, I was thinking, I'm like, okay, this feels weird. Um, I got to the house, stayed with my sisters, ended up getting another call about like probably an hour later from my aunt. And she said, hey, don't freak out, but your mom's having a heart attack. And I was like, what? My mom, I think she was 41 at the time, last year.
Yeah,
Right?
really young.
Yeah, really young. She's 42 now. She'll be 43 at the end of this month. Happy early birthday, Mom, if you ever watch this. But she ended up having that, and then she had another one like a week later after she got out of the hospital, and then they found out that she had a heart tumor, a bunch
Mm.
of other weird stuff. So, going back to like you said, like your parents experienced all that. I'm very sorry to hear that. Like I said, my mom had that, and I was like, this is confusing stuff. Random stuff happens all the time. But I like how you said that you're doing it for, not just because, oh, I want to go into this career. You have a why factor. And that's me being in business and doing what I do with my company, helping other companies. I have a why factor for that. It's because I've seen, companies, go from here to here with, like super bad struggle or whatever else. And obviously the finances is for my son. I have a son and, I want to provide for him and show him that you can do whatever you want with your life. But yeah, I guess that kind of ties into that was going to be my next question of why so many people in the healthcare industry, they don't just go from like, high school, college, and then one thing and they stay there. I feel like it's always, high school, college, and then they just go to so many different places and then they finally find their destination. You shared yours, but why do you feel like so many other people in the healthcare industry go through so many different checkpoints to actually get to their final destination?
I think some of it is because of that demoralization factor I talked about.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of people that take a break from healthcare and they work somewhere else
Oh yeah.
and they go back to it eventually. But it's a hard field to stay engaged in for a few reasons. Number one, I mean, just looking at burnout, in admin at least, if I'm talking to a patient, it's usually because there's a problem.
Hmm.
Um, I don't remember if I mentioned this previously, but if you were to come do a tour of our office, because we do neuropsych assessments, the assessment rooms have to be kind of a blank canvas. There can't be a lot of decor. There can't be anything too distracting because you want them to be able to focus on what they're doing.
Yeah.
My room by, is a nice little juxtaposition right next door. I'm a little bit of a maximalist. I'm a little mini maximalist. I love artwork and I love warmth and warm lighting, and I have
Yep.
light diffusers on my fluorescent lights that are stars and that help diffuse the light
Yeah.
down and out. And it's a warm space because it needs to be. Because if
Yeah.
I have a patient in here, it's because either the patient's upset or the patient is being non-compliant or even belligerent, and we're having to have a hard conversation. And so
Yeah.
I want the space to be warm and welcoming because of that. Well, when those are the only kind of patient interactions you ever get to have, it's kind of rough, it's a rough space to be. Or even just looking at our clinicians here, we see a lot of geriatric patients where the conversation we end up having about the results is, hey, you're showing early signs of dementia, or you're showing signs of the possible development of early onset Alzheimer's disease, or if they're like a pre-surgical candidate for a brain surgery, we may be having to tell them, hey, unfortunately, according to our results, you're not a good candidate for brain surgery. So this
Hmm.
thing that you were looking forward to doing that might help resolve some of your problems, from our perspective, if you actually go through with doing it, you're going to end up worse. You're likely to end up worse off than if you didn't do that surgery, because
Yeah.
your neuroplasticity just, you're not cognitively flexible enough to recover from a brain surgery anymore.
Yeah.
Maybe you would have been previously, maybe you could be with some, go through some cognitive rehab, maybe you could get there, but right now today you're not. They're
Yeah.
having to have these really difficult conversations and interactions.
Yeah.
And, just to be very frank with the financial side of things in healthcare, I will get remittance notices a year after something was done and paid for from an insurance saying, hey, that thing we fully paid for a year ago, we've reviewed records and we've decided we shouldn't have paid you anything. So you need to send the money back. And also, you're not allowed to contact the patient to collect payment from them either. This is just, you just need to work for free.
What the?
Obviously, oh yeah, no, that's a real example. They have up to 2 years where they can recoup payments. By contrast, we only have 90 days to file billing claims for the most part. There's only a few insurances that allow more than 90 days where you can bill. If you hit day 91 and you bill it, they'll just be like, nope, we don't have to cover it. You didn't file it timely.
Yeah.
They have 2 years. They can come back and say, we've decided that we overpaid you. We've decided we shouldn't have paid you at all. Rarely they'll decide they underpaid us and here's a little check for $10 more or something. Like, it's usually something paltry.
Yeah.
But now you're having these difficult clinical conversations and moments with patients, and you're getting, held over the coals almost some days by the insurances, or being told you don't deserve to get paid for the work that you did. And all of that mixed up together on top of clinical hours, especially inpatient facilities. This is not as much, it's not as big of a problem in outpatient, but it is still a problem in both.
Yeah.
But the clinical hours they're having to pull for a neuropsych patient, on average, between the testing, the interview, the results, and the report writing and the background review and everything that goes into getting these results together, we spend about 11.5 hours per patient on average. There are some patients that we spend more than that on because the battery was larger, battery of tests given was larger, or the patient had a more complicated background, right?
Mm.
So we're talking about 11.5 hours weekly per patient. We see anywhere from 4 to 6 or more patients per clinician. Even
Wow.
if we only saw 4, now we're talking about more than 44 hours of work for those 4 patients for that clinician to have to manage.
Yeah.
So we're already talking about they're starting the week behind,
Yeah.
right? 44 hours. They have 40 hours in the week that are they're clocked in. You're getting paid for this time. Anything beyond that, it is what it is. Good luck.
Yeah.
Everybody's salaried. Clinicians are typically salaried. So they're already starting behind, and that's on the low end of the patient load. If 6 patients all actually show up, now we're talking about more than 66 hours worth of work per clinician. If 6
Wow.
show up. If more than that show up, just keep doing the math.
Yeah.
But so we're talking about a heavy workload. We're talking about difficult conversations and moments, more than in other industries, I would argue. Anyone
Yeah.
working in healthcare is having those really difficult client conversations, patients or clients, right? And then number 3, the insurance companies actively often devaluing further the work that you do. And when you put it all together, would anyone who is sane take a job like that? If you put that on an application in front of somebody and told them, here's what's going to happen, these 3 things, would anybody apply for that job?
Probably
Probably
not.
not.
No.
So I think that that's part of it. I think just the
Yeah.
conditions that we are collectively put under, and it impacts administrators too. I mean,
Yeah.
again, if a patient's in front of me, if they're pissed all the way off, or
Yeah.
my clinician is, somebody
Yeah.
is ticked off, and that's
Right.
why we're sitting here having this conversation, right? So we're all impacted by that, and as much as I'd love to talk about how resiliency is important and, oh, you just got to stay strong, like that only gets you so far. Even I
Yeah.
have the days where I hit the wall and I don't get right back up. I don't immediately go, thank you for your time. Let me, next, like I was saying, even I have those days where I just can't, where I go and I sit in the clinical director's office and I look at her and I'm just like, is anything I do worth anything? Does it matter? You know,
Yeah.
these are conversations I have sometimes
Yeah.
because you do eventually, no matter how strong you are, no matter how resilient you are, no matter how encouraging you are or have been encouraged by others, you hit the wall.
Yeah.
So I think that happens. I think it happens more often in healthcare than in other industries. And I think that's why so many people get burned out and either take a break or they go into a completely different industry or they, retire early and they do something else. I think it's just there's only so much you can take.
Yeah.
And again, we want it to change, we have to do something.
Yeah.
And it's most days I would say that that's enough for me to keep going,
Yeah.
but not everyone's like me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
even I am occasionally not like that's the best version of me, right? Like that's
Yeah.
top of my game, A game, 110% Tiffany. That's not every day.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm able to give every single day.
Of
I get
course.
I get like 1 week of that a month, right? And then it's
Mm.
different degrees of like my
Yeah.
best, my worst, my sometimes I'm on top of the mountain cheering to the sky, sometimes I'm crying in the club, right? Like
Mm.
it's the full spectrum every month. But I think
Yeah.
that that's why. I think that
No,
that's why.
I appreciate the transparency with that because there is a lot of biased opinions, I think, in every industry. But speaking to a lot of people mainly on this podcast and also just in business in general, since my journey starting my company, there is a lot of biased opinions. People will say, it's really good or it's really bad. I feel like there's nothing in the middle. Um, but people don't really share the transparency of things, right? It's like you just said, like you're gonna have really good days, you're gonna have really bad days, right? And it's all part of the process. And I think that is definitely a huge reason why people, jump around to so many different checkpoints until they finally reach somewhere where they want to stay for, even a little bit long term, retire there, or even just, do whatever with, final
Yeah.
destination. So I appreciate you sharing that. I'd like for you to, like, since you talked about you having tough conversations with, with people that come in, like patients and clients, whatever. I'd love for, and you also mentioned, some days are, you love it, and then other days it's like you hit the wall and you're like, you can't, it's hard to get back up. I'd love for you to share. Now, this doesn't have to be too personal. I know with what you do, there's definitely some like legal compliance where you can't share
Right.
like information about people,
Right.
but I'd like for you to share some type of something, if this makes sense. I'd love for you to share something of whether it's a person you talk to, maybe a coworker, or something in your personal life, or
Mhm.
something that you've seen or dealt with in healthcare that really motivates you and sparks up in the back of your head, even when you hit the wall and you can't get back up. Something that reminds you, like, hey, Tiffany, you remember who you are? You're here for a reason. These people are
Yeah.
counting on you.
Yeah.
Let me know something that motivated you or something that pops up when you're having a hard time that keeps you going and staying in the position you are in now.
This was relatively recent. So we do, like I mentioned, pre-surgical candidacy assessments. And
Yep.
specifically, we do a lot of candidacies for DBS, which is deep brain stimulation. It's commonly used for patients that have Parkinson's or that have essential tremors, less frequently for patients with certain types of seizure disorders.
Yeah.
It's a brain surgery, but essentially they go in and they install the DBS, and it's able to, I don't know how to explain this in a non-technical way. So again, any clinicians listening, I'm doing my best, and
Yeah.
you do it better on your podcast by all means. But the DBS essentially is helping to control the symptoms that are being experienced as a result of the brain activity in that specific region.
Mhm.
So with the Parkinson's patients in particular and the essential tremors patients, it's able to help through a variety of methods, basically to reduce those tremors down.
Mhm.
Okay. So if your hands are shaking, is it safe to cook?
No.
No. If you're someone that knits or crochets or does needlepoint work, that's gone.
Yep.
If you're a gamer, I game, you're done with that.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to do a lot of things for yourself anymore. Things that help you maintain independence and things that just bring you joy.
Yep.
So a lot of times the candidates for DBS are pursuing it, not because it's going to fix their problems. They're still going to have that condition, but
Mhm.
it's going to relieve the symptoms and it's going to improve their quality of life.
Yeah.
And we know, those of us that know the data side of it, I have a master's of science, so my degree is heavily data reliant.
Slight flex.
Not an MBA, MS,
Yeah.
HSA, Masters of Health Services
Yeah.
Administration.
Yeah.
So the data people and the clinicians know, okay, if we improve quality of life and if you experience more joy, your health outcomes improve, your
Mhm.
recovery time, improves, your longevity improves. There was a recent study that showed that for the aging population, the people that were happy and had positive views of aging lived 7.5 years longer than their counterparts that were actively raging against aging, and aging is horrible, and this is the worst version of me, right? Like, they live longer. So
Yeah.
if we improve the quality of life across the board, many things will improve for this patient. And so we had a candidate several years ago that was for DBS and that was a good candidate and was approved, and they got the surgery. And I was actually giving them a call because it was one of those, hey, it's been 2 years since we saw you. The insurance
Yeah.
has indicated they overpaid and they're having us send back a certain portion. This is one of the few where it was like, hey, the patient's actually responsible for the difference. And so I was
Yeah.
having to make the call of, you owe us some money. I'm very sorry. I'm
Yeah.
very sorry.
Right.
Well, we got to talking and they were like, by the way, I'll gladly pay that. Here's a card, blah, blah, blah. But by the way, please tell the doctor that I got the surgery and I can knit again.
Mm.
And I no longer had to go into assisted living. I was able to be back home and take back up these hobbies, and I can cook for myself again and I can
Yeah.
clean for myself again.
Yeah.
I'm just so much happier. Please tell
Yeah.
them, because that test I did with y'all was a big deciding factor for me whether or not I was going to do it at all. And
Man.
because I was a good candidate, and because they told me I was a good candidate, and because the doctor reassured me, that this is what the results are showing, this is the likelihood that it will go really well. There's only a very small chance. I went ahead and I did it. And
Mm,
because I made that decision, I'm so much happier. And I
man.
just let them know. And I know exactly which patient it was. I mean, this call happened I said relatively recently. This was a year and a half ago. I remember exactly which patient it was.
Yeah.
That is how impactful those stories are. We see, I told you, 4 to 6 patients per week per clinician.
Right.
So that over the last year and a half, that's how many more patients minimum have come through the doors since that phone call. I still remember exactly which patient it was.
Yeah. No, that's
On
awesome.
the flip side, and that was a positive one that gets me up, right? That helps me get
Yep.
back up. There was
Yep.
another patient that I worked with when I was a case manager in 2019 whose full name I remember because they had a workers' comp claim. The claim was not going well.
Mm,
Work was no longer paying any benefits of any kind illegally. They should have
yeah.
been. They stopped paying
Right.
benefits. When that
Yeah.
happens, you have to go through appeals and it takes time. And
Yeah.
in the time that it was taking for the appeals to go through to get the payments restarted, they lost their house, their spouse divorced them, they lost custody of the kids, and
Mm,
they were moving into a much smaller apartment by themselves that they were afraid they were also going to lose because if the money didn't restart soon, they
yeah.
had no income. They were having to borrow money from friends and family. And,
Yeah.
they sat in front of me and were in tears. And it was like, it was like watching my dad sit in front of me go through this.
Yeah.
Not, they looked nothing like my dad, not because of that, but just the
Yeah.
working so hard for so long, trying again and again and again, and hitting the wall and hitting the wall and hitting the wall. I've never forgotten
Yeah.
because that's the other patient. Those are the two patients that I see that I can't forget.
Yeah.
And I have to get up and I have
Yep.
to keep going
Yeah.
because if I don't, they can't.
Yep.
So I'm not just getting up for me, I'm getting up for them.
Yeah.
I'm getting up because the clinicians need support because their job is so difficult.
Mm,
Mine is not a cakewalk by any means, but it is a different level working as a clinician. It is
right.
just a different level of stress and pressure, time away from the people you love, time away from your family. I mean, they hardly get to go on vacation on peace, right? How
Yeah.
many doctors are taking calls while they're actively out on PTO?
Yeah.
These people need me to get back up.
Yeah.
And if I don't, it's just like those years ago when I was sitting there. If I go to med school and I can't be there for my family, I'm going to regret it. If I don't get back up, I'm going to regret it
Yeah.
because they need me.
Absolutely.
And there's two stories, right? They're wildly different. One of
Mhm.
them is the hopeful story, right? The effervescent butterfly kind of hope that it's like, yeah, it's the idea. But and the other one is like the dog that's like with mange that you're like, you have not eaten in 6 days, and that is
Yeah.
also hope. Like
Yeah.
these are the two hopes, the hope for the best of the best outcomes, but also the hope of I have to keep going because the alternative is just unacceptable. I
Yeah.
have to have both and just get up. Just get
Yeah.
up.
Yeah. No, I love that you shared two different stories because I feel like you have to, especially in your position, because it's just the reality of it. You don't always have one or the other, right? And I'm sure there's many others that are kind of, in between that, and even in between that, there's so many different ones. But yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. Like my grandmother, she has Parkinson's, right? So I understand like there's certain things that she can't do that she used to do. I see it. She can't do it now. Breaks my heart. So if I'm sure that person that was talking to you or whatever, you're like, hey, let the doctor know I'm able to do this now. That just like warms your heart a lot. And then the other situation, you're in person, you see this, person emotionally breaking down, physically, whatever, like it breaks your heart, but at the same time, it motivates you in a way because it's like, wow, if I wasn't here, I couldn't help them at all. You know, so it's like, yeah, it sucks seeing them like that, and it sucks that they're in that position. But at the end of the day, it puts not it's a different type of warmth on your heart. It's more of like a fire, like a stinging fire,
Yeah.
instead of like a hug, it's like a stinging fire. It's like, okay, I hit the wall. It's hard to get back up, but I have to because these people are relying on me.
Yeah.
And that's the reality of healthcare. And I respect you a lot for that. Like, you're carrying the weight of not only your own emotion and whatever else, but also so many other individuals as well. Like, people that you work with, that you're surrounded with, people that you know of, that you're thinking of, or, your patients that are talking to you, or people that you get calls from, or just whatever it is. That's the reality of it and your position. But yeah, I mean, aside from that, looking ahead, like 6 to 12 months, I know you're a manager, you're an administrator, you kind of, you control a lot of different moving pieces for the company. What's the vision for you guys? Like, in terms of what, you can handle, obviously, like, where do you want to take things next?
We are trying to expand to have at least one other clinician who is more forensic in nature. So neuropsych is a specialty within a specialty, right? There's psychology, so those are specialists already.
Mm.
Neuropsych is a specialist with additional specialized training. And then forensic neuropsychologists are the specialists within the specialist within the specialist. So specialist squared.
Okay.
Cubed, excuse me, cubed times
Okay.
three.
Yeah.
So, a forensic neuropsychologist is going to handle more cases that are surrounding issues like disability
Yeah.
and competency. So, is this person competent and capable to parent someone else? That would be an assessment we could get assigned.
Mhm.
Does this person qualify for disability benefits? Especially if they were previously tested, you would take the current assessments and render those and sort of comparatively and analyze and assess and see, okay, has anything changed since last time we saw you that would have, disabled you or
Yeah.
put you into a different sphere of functionality.
Yeah.
Legal cases. So if somebody goes out, gets into a car accident, and is trying to say in their case basically that the car accident has negatively impacted their cognition, that they're not thinking clearly or straight, which is very common with head injuries, right? Traumatic brain injuries.
Mhm.
Um, those are more forensic in nature, and they
Yeah.
tend to be a little bit spooky from a licensing standpoint for somebody to take on because there's already quite a bit of pressure on a license in general when you assess somebody. But when we're talking about forensic cases, it's that pressure's amped up. So
Yeah.
we really like to pull in a forensic neuropsychologist or a neuropsychologist with forensic training to help handle some of those more complicated cases so
Yeah.
we can help fill that need. I mean, there's a ton of people that have the need. There's not a lot of people that are willing to take on those clients because of the, risk to their licensing. If it goes wrong or if they make a mistake, there's
Yeah.
much higher stakes at play than with a standard neuropsych patient.
Yeah.
Which is not to say that the stakes aren't there pretty high already. It's just even higher. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't I don't have a good analogy for that, but like it's
Yeah.
like walking over a rickety bridge versus walking over a rickety bridge and now there's piranhas in the water below, right?
Yeah.
Like these are both not good. I don't like either of these, but one of them is
Right.
a little bit better.
Yeah, for
Really
sure.
like
So
to do
it's
that.
for,
Like,
yeah. So right now, it just seems like you're just filling different positions for different things, so you guys can just expand in every way possible, like, and just do like the whole round. That's awesome. Yeah, I think that's what. And I know there's a lot. I mean, there's founders, entrepreneurs, people in your position, and also just regular people, like individuals that aren't in business or whatever, watching this right now. And I'm sure a lot of founders relate to this. Just hiring different pieces for the company. And it's
yeah,
just like, okay, this and then this and then this, but it's worth it. It's like, you gotta find certain people for certain things. Um, that's what it boils down to. But I like to ask everybody this one thing. I ask my friends this sometimes in certain areas of life. I ask them, I say, if you had a magic wand
mhm.
that could fix one thing, and I guess in your case it would be the company you work for, or just your job in general. If you had a magic wand to be able to fix one thing in particular, what would that one thing be that the magic wand could fix?
Actually answered this question recently, and so I
Really?
do have an answer for you. It hasn't changed.
Okay.
I'll give you the preface of why. I
Right.
think this is
Right.
important. I do not think that we adequately value healthcare in general. But I really think we do not value mental health care even more so.
Yeah.
Physical medicine, if your back is hurting every single day, that's kind of hard to ignore, isn't it?
Yep.
But if you can't talk about, this is a personal example, if you can't talk about your mom without wanting to tear up, well, then you just don't talk about your mom, right?
Yeah.
You can ignore mental health up until you can't,
Yep.
until it starts impacting your physical health,
Hmm.
until it starts impacting your work performance because you can't focus or you can't remember things that you used to be able to remember because the stress, the anxiety, the depression is eating away at you.
Yeah.
That's psychophysiology. That's the mind body connection and how they impact one another. Physical
Yep.
health impacts mental, mental impacts physical.
Of course.
But I think we as a culture in the United States, and particularly where I live in Texas, I don't think we adequately value mental health care. And I think if we did, not only would, people in the field be better compensated and would the insurances fund us more adequately, but I think too that people would be more willing to pursue mental health care and healthcare treatment
Mhm.
before it gets so bad that they don't have another choice.
Yeah.
Um, my so many of the people I love are the reason again that I do this. And I think about my mom and how she passed away in 23 and everything, with the prison sentence and everything, her whole life leading up to that. If my mom had had not just adequate access to mental health care, but if she had had the desire and the inclination to pursue it, if the people in her life throughout her life had encouraged her to pursue it and held her to account to pursue it, if the people around her had valued mental health, if she had valued mental health, I think she would still be here.
Yeah.
So if I could wave my magic wand and anything happen, I would want us all to value mental health care, period, more than we do.
Yeah.
I think it would solve a lot of problems that patients encounter, but that naturally also boil over into the other parts of our lives.
Yeah. I like that. And I agree. I think, yeah, like that analogy you used, but it's like you said, it's a personal example. Like you can, dwell on something and think about it, but then, not talk about it, right? Just kind of ignore it, blow it off, whatever, until you can't, you know. But with physical stuff, if it's like pain or discomfort, it's like, okay, it's obviously there. No, like, even if I don't think about it, it's still there. So let me go get get the chiropractor, or let me go get some ibuprofen, whatever the case is. And um, yeah, like in my case earlier, I had a headache and I took some ibuprofen right here, but if it's mental stuff, it's completely different. You can just push it off to the side until you can't anymore. So I think putting that shift and focus on realizing that, yeah, physical is very important, but it goes right hand in hand with it. Your mental is going to affect your physical, and your physical is going to affect your mental. And eventually it just comes this one big thing. It's like your gut and brain connection almost when people talk about that. People,
Oh, yeah.
it's just like it all goes hand in hand. It's a giant full circle moment once people realize that.
And I don't want any physical medicine doctors to come for me. Yes, I acknowledge that physical discomfort can also be ignored to a certain extent, right? Every time I take that ibuprofen with my headache, I'm
Hmm.
kind of being like, okay, yeah, thank you. I
Yeah.
take this medicine and shut up. Even with physical medicine to an extent, right? Like you start to build up a tolerance against medications and things like that.
Yeah.
I just think in general, don't come for me, physical medicine doctors. Don't come for me on LinkedIn or anywhere. In general, you can ignore, you can work through physical medicine. You know, you have tools, but eventually, like you get to that point where either that body part is just absolutely degraded and failing.
Mm.
It's so much harder, I think, to ignore physical health. I think
Yeah.
relatively easy to ignore mental health. And
Yeah.
even and I could dig way down deep into this, but I'll leave you with this kind of final thought on that. Mental health impacts everything you do. whenever you make a decision to not sleep, to do work, to go to a party, whatever, to do something that prevents you from getting enough sleep, that is a component of you not valuing your own health, because you're sitting here saying, well, this other thing is more important that I need to do than this basic need that I have.
Yeah.
You're justifying it up here because for whatever reason, and you do this over and over and over again, right? You don't get enough sleep, you don't drink enough water, you skip meals, these things that you're doing that are physical, the reason you're okay with it is that you've devalued your own care.
Yeah.
Or you've allowed others or your work culture, or whoever it is that's kind of the conspirator there, or the core issue, function there.
Yeah.
You're devaluing your own care. That's a mental health issue. You're
Yeah.
not valuing yourself, so you're not following through on things you need to do to take care of yourself, and it then impacts your physical health, and it makes
Yeah.
your mental health worse. And it's the Ouroboros, it's the self-eating snake, right? Like you
Yeah.
have to decide at some point where to break the wheel or where
Yeah.
to cut the snake. You got to make a decision. If we valued mental health care more, I think some of the physical health problems we see so often would not be as prevalent as they are.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, our cognitive function is literally what makes us move our finger, our toes, or our legs, like everything like that. So it's like you said, whether it's not enough sleep, not enough water, or not enough meals, or maybe too many meals, or just whatever it is in somebody's case, it all starts up here. It's because of a belief system that you have around a certain thing, whether it's you heard that you should do this or you shouldn't do this, or maybe you just want to get something done or not get something done. So you're going to put it off to the side or do too much of it, right? I feel like it's one extreme to the next with everybody. But if they would realize that if you just fix this, everything else more than likely will be fine. Some
Yeah.
things are inevitable, but this is how it is. But
Well, I think we'd
yeah,
be better. We would
yeah,
make less excuses,
yeah,
have better follow through, take better care of ourselves. I
yeah.
think there's a lot of issues that branch out from it.
Absolutely, yeah. Before we wrap up here, I like to do a quick fire round, is what I call it with everybody. I ask, three quick questions before we get done here. First one being, what is your favorite book or podcast? It could be both or either one.
Oh gosh. Podcast. I'm gonna mess this up. We Can Do Hard Things. I think that's the right version or of those words.
Okay.
Do hard things.
Yeah,
Don't ask me who hosts it. I can't remember names like that right now,
that's
but we
fine.
can do hard things.
It's fine. Okay. Next one being, what is a tool that you can't live without? This could be physical or digital.
A tool. Um, it's in my purse right now. I have like a prop that was a university marketing thing from North Texas that is looks like a pen, but you unscrew it and it's got multiple different types of screwdriver heads in it that you can swap out.
Oh,
I keep it in
oh,
my purse. I use it all the time. I'll be at work or at home or out in the world and something will happen and we'll need a screwdriver and I'll be like, I got you right here.
yeah. I don't know if you think this way too, but sometimes I think like, okay, if I didn't have that with me, maybe those things wouldn't even occur to where I need it. I don't know. Like I just,
Maybe, yeah, like I'm creating the situations that make
yeah,
this thing.
yeah.
Maybe.
But I also do think sometimes certain situations happen more because I don't have something of
Yeah.
something. I'm like, wait, okay, if I had this, would this not be happening right now? Like sometimes I feel like what I like this pen right now. It's like, do I even need the pen? You know, or whatever. But
Self-fulfilling prophecy. I
yeah,
created the prophecy that I then fulfilled.
exactly. Right. So yeah, it's just like overthinking sometimes with that. The last one on the quick fire round would be, what is a myth in your industry that you would like to bust, get rid of?
I feel like everybody's gonna be mad about this. This is one of my soapboxes. Healthcare is too expensive. No, it's not. No, it's not. The prices we have out there are fake. And you know why we have them? Because if I tell insurance that something costed, then I need to get paid $100. I need to get paid $100 for me to meet all my cost needs and have a little bit of profit, like a 10 to 20% profit. I tell them that, they're going to pay me 20% on average of whatever I bill.
Yeah.
If I actually need to make $100, I have to bill closer to 1,000 because
Mm,
that's the only way I actually get paid what I need to make. If I actually was honest and sent the bills exactly as they needed to be for us to get paid, we would not make enough money to survive. We'd be taking a loss every single bill.
yeah.
So it's not actually that expensive. A lot of it's fake and inflated because of the insurance. I'm not going to talk about pharmaceuticals. That's a whole different issue.
Yeah.
I'm talking specifically about rendering healthcare services, the cost of the goods, the cost of the salaries, the overhead, packaging it all together. It's actually not all that expensive. It's just a lot of inflated imaginary numbers
Hmm.
because they make us do that.
Yeah, for sure. Now, before we end this, where can people see your work, follow your work, learn more about you, or even the company that you work for, all of that stuff?
Yeah, you can always find my profile on LinkedIn. Happy to connect.
Okay.
If there's ever anything I can help with, if you are in DFW, you're always welcome to swing by the Dallas Neuro Rehab Center. We're happy to meet people all the time, but you can connect with me on LinkedIn, Tiffany
Great.
Emily Miller-Bolerjack. It's about, that long.
Yeah,
Also on Instagram, Spiffy Tiffy 2020.
I like that.
I made the account in 2020. Seemed
Yeah,
like I had the time.
yeah,
I
yeah.
had the time.
And for
Administrators were
everybody,
the first ones to get furloughed, so I had time.
yeah, and I'll put all that stuff in the link in the description so they could check all that stuff out, Tiffany. And then one last thing, if anybody listening or even me or whatever could take, just one action from today's conversation, what should it be?
One action, talk to somebody you love. It can be anybody, family member, friend, your work best friend, whoever. Talk to somebody you love openly and honestly about something that you're struggling with. We really, really like as people to only put our best forward, and then we compare internally our worst to everybody else's best because that's all we ever
Mm.
really see. But when we're struggling, we're meant to be together. That's how we're able to get through challenges and problems. It's through community. So if there's something that you're struggling with, find someone you love and talk openly and honestly with them about that struggle. They don't, it's not so they can fix it for you. It's not because you have to immediately be able to say, I've got the solution. It's
Mm.
just to let somebody else share that load with you. You can't do this on your own, and
Yeah,
you're not supposed to do it on your own.
yeah, I like that. Well, you heard it, everybody, or you heard it, everybody. I agree with that. Yeah, talk to somebody you love about whatever it is that you're thinking or dealing with or struggling with or anything in general. I agree with that a lot. I think sometimes when I just, if you just bottle things up, you don't talk to anybody, especially somebody that actually cares for you or that you care for, it'd be a lot better if you just talk to them. So I agree with that completely. But once again,
Guilty.
Tiffany, thanks for getting on. Everybody else watching, make sure to drop a like, comment, subscribe, comment your favorite takeaway. I know there's a lot of detailed stuff in here, which I love. I'm not gonna do too much hyper editing on this. Literally just gonna trim the front and the end, throw a thumbnail on here, and let everybody watch this. And but yeah, like I said, everybody, all the links will be in the description for Tiffany's stuff and the company she works for. Swing by if you're in her area. They're more than happy to see you, meet you, and help you out with whatever. But yeah, thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you on the next episode.